Yo. Let's see. Let's make sure all this is crispy and defined. And we in there. But yo, what's going on? It is Good Friday, even though we still in pandemic mode. But yes. Happy Good Friday, y'all. Good morning. I know a lot of y'all just waking up, or some of y'all even still sleep if you don't have to work today. Thankfully, I did not have to work today, so it feels good. Like I said, I know I had took like a little hiatus from streaming. Yo, Megas, what's up? What's going on? But I had a lot going on IRL, real life. So pretty much had to take a step back. And then, once I saw, I was like, oh yeah, Good Friday is coming up. I got that day off. I just do the podcast episode that day. But yes, as you can see, we're on episode 5 of the series. So I'm glad that you guys are enjoying this podcast and really in taking the information that you get from it. I also didn't think it would be as successful as it's been doing, but a lot of people have been enjoying this kind of content as well. So I will continue to do this alongside of course, the normal streams of just gameplay. But I personally like doing this because it's another way to interact with you guys and to also talk about the mutual thing that we all love, fighting games. And even real life stuff too. But without further ado though, homie Do-Rag Fanatic, thanks for the host, appreciate it. But without further ado, we're going to get right into this. So as you can see, the episode, why so defensive? Yeah. So pretty much to highlight this, we are going to be talking about defense in fighting games. This is a concept, I say it's a little more neglected than offense is, because people tend to, I want to, hit buttons and get the big cool looking combos and all that, and that's all good and well, but with no defense, in my honest opinion, you're not gonna last that long. And then if you're going against somebody that has solid defense, well, yeah, I think you get the picture and you get the point that I'm trying to reach. So we know about defense in fight games, so simply, of course, why? So why be so defensive? Well, the purpose of defense is to protect, prevent, and seize. Playing a great defense makes it that much harder for the opponent and helps increase one's chances of winning. Of course, in fighting games, we know, or in any sport, competitive sport, it's essential to be able to do both. But a strong defense can, in a lot of cases, translate to a strong offense. That's why I think defense is very vital, because when you play such solid defense, it makes transitioning to offense even that much easier sometimes. Or your defense is your offense, because essentially when you constantly making key plays, blocking and punishing and all that good stuff, you're putting those points up on the board that you would if you just were brashly going on offense. So that's why I feel it's important to develop this skill. Take as much time as you need to sit in the lab, hone it, harness it, all that good stuff. It's definitely a key skill if you want to be successful in playing. Defense is a core the core is made up of like, I don't know if I had to say a few things that we're going to get into, because I know a lot of people usually run into a roadblock when it comes to defense, and they don't fully like understand it or grasp it in totality. So hopefully after this podcast, I can help you have a better understanding of the defensive side of fighting. Because of course the last episode we talked about offense, and I think that's usually a concept that most people grasp a little quicker, because it's simply the act of acting, whereas defensive is more so reacting, if that makes any sense. So our next slide, we're going to talk about those core defensive keys, and these are, to me, the 5 keys that make up defense as a whole in fighting games. So of course we have blocking, which is simply usually holding back or maybe even a block button, but this will be the most common factor, of course, of defense, because you got to block. You got to block in order to stop yourself from getting hit, and protect your life lead. Possibly, set up opportunity for something like blocking. You're going to do this on defense practically 100% of the time. It's definitely the most common thing to deal with as far as when you're trying to play a strong defense. You're trying to be Fort Knox, hold it down, and like I said, protect, prevent, seize. So blocking, of course, is part of the protect part. If I had to group it or bunch it, protection, protect the house, all that. So you watch your sports, like sports and the FGC go so well together, because since they're both competitive, they share a lot of common concepts. And like I said, in basketball, soccer, football, whatever sport, on defense, you want to protect your house, protect your goal, protect. So, with that being said, next up is awareness. Now, with awareness, this is probably one of the most neglected concepts when it comes to defense. Awareness is very important. Of course, you have awareness on both fronts. You have offensive awareness and defensive awareness, but I believe defensive is more neglected than offensive, because see, with defense, I could probably 100% of the time say that most do not pay full attention on defense, and the reason for that being is because in a lot of cases they're just trying to solely block, which is a good thing because you want to block, but while blocking, you want to be aware of where your life lead is, how much time you have left, what moves are they using against you while you're blocking. All these things tie into awareness. Paying attention, if I had to make it even more of a, for common sake, more of a quick, easy to understand term when it comes to awareness, it's pretty much just paying attention. Yo, Roy, what's going on, man? What is going on? Nice performance in the tournament yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't play. My power went down during the tournament, and it came on after the tournament was over. So, sucks, but it is what it is. They said they would let me, since that happened to me, compete in the East. And since I'm so close to the East, being here in Michigan, it won't be too bad. So shout outs to them on that. But back to the topic at hand. Like I said, awareness. You have to pay attention to everything. Awareness to me is one of the most neglected, but one of the most important out of the 5 of these. Because when you are paying attention, everything else can flow a bit better. Because, your mind has to, first off, in order to play fighting games, your mind has to be there. And when your mind is there, you can make everything click on offense or defense. But especially to me on defense, if you want to make those big plays and turn the momentum in your direction, you have to pay attention. Like, I've seen so many players fall victim to maybe losing because they didn't pay attention to how much time they had left. They were backdashing too much, didn't see the live lead, not paying attention to what their opponent is doing. Like, literally, I've heard so many players just say, man, I didn't keep that, or I didn't notice that. So you want to be sharp when it comes to awareness. The sharper your awareness, the better you can make defensive plays. So keep that in mind, drill that into your mind. Awareness, awareness, awareness. As players, we need to stop neglecting that factor because it's so important to pay attention. And that's not just, in fighting games, that's in real life. If you at work and your boss is, giving you specific orders, you have to pay attention in order to be able to execute as needed. Like I said, same thing applies here. A person who's solid, strong at defense has high awareness. And when you're going to get somebody that has high awareness, it's that much harder to play them because they're paying attention to everything that you do. So remember that. Please just remember that. So next up on the board is reads and reactions. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because a lot of players tend to blur the line between the two, even confuse them at times. So, start with the first one, reads. A read is making pretty much an educated guess compiled of data that you pulled together from watching your opponent and using that data to make, like I said, an educated guess on what they're going to do, which is why it's called a read. And when you can read your opponent, that makes their battle that much harder because since you have all this data and you're paying attention to what they're doing, they now have to be a bit more selective on what they do and mix up what they do. So being a person that can read well, that there's a lot of benefits to that. And again, that ties into awareness though. So this is why I say this is why this is all bunched together as keys, because all of these, just like during the offense podcast, all of those keys tie into each other. Like, same thing applies on defense. All of this has to mesh in order for you to have collectively strong defense. So reads, pretty much data compiled. Then once that data is compiled, then you conduct the experiment, and when you conduct it, hopefully you're either successful or you're not. Reads are guesses, so there is a bit of a gamble when making them, but the difference is that the guesses are from compiled data, so it's an educated guess. It's not just a raw, I'm just guessing and I'm just going with the flow and instinct and all that and this, that, and the third. No, it's usually reads are usually, they come from somewhere. They're not just happening. And then onto the other side of the spectrum is reactions. It's basically reacting to said move, said whiff, whatever happens on the screen. And yes, you can train your reactions in practice mode, of course. But some people say they react to certain stuff, and there's just certain things that are literally not possible for a human to react to. If anything, it's a read. Now, this is where the line gets blurred. People tend to sometimes call a read a reaction, and then other instances they'll call a reaction a read. And like I said, I see it happen so much. A reaction is literally your own human reflex, and how well it is how well you train it. Because I'm a share tidbit with y'all that I don't particularly care to hear, and that's young man reactions. There's not really a such thing as that. And I could tell you from personal experience, because I done went to plenty tourneys. And like I said, keep in mind, y'all, I'm in my 30s. So a lot of players I play when I go to a tournament, they're young. I've played 17-year-olds. I've played 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, all that. Like people that are at least, a decade or more younger than me, and my reactions have been sharper than theirs, even though I'm older than them. And reactions are not an age-based thing; they're more so just how well you train them. The human, you have to realize our muscles. Like people hear, you hear the term muscle memory. Muscle memory is literally you practicing or doing a habit or something over and over, and your muscles just naturally react when said task is being done. That's literally what it is. Like, if y'all watched, Dragon Ball Super, and they talk about Ultra Instinct and Wiz explaining, reacting without really thinking. That's what that is. So the more you train that, the better they are. It becomes natural. It becomes second nature. Like, that's literally how it works. That's why you have to be able to distinguish the difference between a read and a reaction. Read comes from data and compiling things. Reaction is just your muscle memory taking effect, and boom. That's the difference between the two. So it's important to train both. You can train both in the sense of, and people say, well, how do you get better at making reads? Well, like I said, it ties into awareness, and then how much knowledge you have too. Let's say your base knowledge is pretty strong. Like you're going against various matchups, and you have what I like to call foundation knowledge. When you have foundation knowledge, it'll be that much easier to navigate the entire match as a whole, because then now you just have to learn the player. So in match, the less that you have to learn, the easier it'll be to navigate. I'm not saying it's going to guarantee a win, because again, you still have to play the match. But as far as navigating it won't be as hard. You'll be able to traverse the waters a bit easier. And that's always cool to kind of be at ease, because trying to play any fighting game with mental stress is a task, and it never usually works out. And then, that's when we get all the moments like the infamous Sanford stick toss. Shout out to the homie Sanford Kelly. That's the bro. But moments like that of intense salt, and rage quitting online, all that type of stuff like that. Well, you know what? I'm gonna put the asterisk by rage quitting online, because a lot of times it's because of connection and all types of stuff like that. So yeah, but But in simpler terms, yes, playing with a clear mind and being able to navigate matches in a simpler, much easier way it helps. So remember, reads, compiled data that you picked up, and then you make an educated guess, and reactions is just the muscle memory that you've trained constantly, and when said situation presents itself, you just react. You don't really think. And that's what that is. So, moving on. We are now at punishment. Punishment. Now, punishment, of course, again, like I say, most players usually neglect defense a bit more than offense, but they especially neglect punishment. Punishment, of course, is usually in fighting games on block and on whiff. Both can be challenging to be consistently good at, because let's be real, we're human. We're not going to punish every single thing, and we're not always going to punish correctly, because you got to incorporate things like nerves, stress, and stuff like that. But having the knowledge goes a long way. So if you know something is severely punishable, you severely punish it. If it's mildly punishable, you punish it. And if it's lightly punished, get your punish. My philosophy that I live by when it comes to punishment is any damage is better than no damage. The worst thing is when a person is not getting punished and the said player is getting away with like absolute criminal murder. Like, they need to be thrown in the cell, throw away the key, lock them up. That's the type of murder they're getting away with. Like, I'll watch like per se a Tekken match, and you know, a player going against a Kazumi player, and they do the tiger uppercut, and they block it, right? And then they stand there and let them fall back to the ground without doing anything. And I just look at the screen like, Jesus. And said player, oh, they didn't punish that. Okay, well, what else can I get away with? And this is why your punishment should be strong, because less situations like that will happen. And again, this is also how your defense can translate into offense. If you punish consistently, you can swing the momentum in your direction and therefore begin to tilt the match in your favor, which is why it's important to establish that, especially if you can establish that early in the fight. That will make the fight that much easier to deal with. Because once you establish that you can punish, it's going to make your opponent a little wearier of doing things. Like, oh yeah, this guy is solid, or she's solid, or this, that, and the third, and I can't really do this. Like, that starts going in their mind. Like, people don't understand how much of an impact punishment can have on matches. Like, say you're going against a player that just loves their damn buttons and will not let up off of them, but they go against you and you have a strong defense and you just start bopping them for hitting their buttons. They didn't slow down. A good defense in general, if you're going against a player like that, you can make them literally dip out of their comfort zone and try to play in a way that they probably normally don't play. And because of that, they're not comfortable. So, and this is kind of where, no doubt, Roy. No doubt, man. I felt like doing that. Wasn't really going to speak on it right now. I was going to say something about it, but, you know, given the times and everybody, you know, just to spread a little cheer, I gifted 20 people in part of the following list. And, you know, just to show love to y'all. in the sense of that, and I got more things coming. I also have a giveaway going down during this month, just to kind of help things be a bit easier during this rough time that we're having. I'm really hoping we get through this coronavirus soon, because I just want to get back to doing regular all around life stuff besides go to work. But yeah, so I did that today just to show some love. But anyway, back to the topic at hand, but punishment. So like I said, a strong punishment can really deter somebody from making a lot of risky decisions against you. And in turn, if they do that, that allows you to dictate the pace of the match in a sense. And when you can do that, this allows you to utilize both traits of offense and defense. Because let's say, you're in a match, person doing a whole lot of unsafe stuff, and you're punishing damn near everything that they're doing. So now they're slowing down and they're beginning to back off. And at that point, your defense is now opening the lane for your offense. So once you see the opponent bagging away and stuff like, now you assert yourself. Because the mistake I see of a lot of overly defensive players, and I'm gonna later get into the cons of being overly defensive after I explain these last two keys, is when they're bagging off, that's when it's time for you to, like I said, assert yourself. Because if you don't assert yourself and you continue to, try to do that, then you might lose the chance. And then you got to redo the sequence all over again. You feel me? So, good punishment is one thing, but great defense overall is another. And last but not least, I'll touch on this, is defensive spacing. And you're looking at spacing. Yeah, spacing is a general thing, but there's two niches to it. There's offensive and then there's defensive. Remember how I just mentioned that you gotta be able to assert yourself, which is more so leads toward the offensive spacing. Like, you start to put yourself in range to use like your pokes, your mix-ups, 50-50s and all that. Well, defensive spacing is the opposite of that. You putting yourself at a range to catch whiffs, block certain things, step certain things. Like I said, they're literally the parallels of each other, but they merge together to make you complete. Well, defensive spacing is that. You want to be able to, again, block. And if you put yourself at a range, like case in point, fighting a Mishima, and Hell Sweep is most effective at range. About 1.5 to 0 is the sweet spot ranges for Hell Sweep. So you want to space yourself to be able to, one, make the read they're gonna do it because the data you compiled. Awareness, watch where they are on the screen. Block, of course, when you see the move come out. And then punish. You see how I just used all 5 of them keys together in the sequence? That's literally playing strong defense. All of that done together. If you're constantly ingraining these 5 keys into your mind and consistently practicing your foundation knowledge and all that, you're going to be tough to deal with on defense. Like, out of the types of players that I've seen or even played, defensive players tend to give people the hardest time, from what I see, when they're strong at defense. Because, of course, when somebody's trying to be a pit bull on offense or whatnot, that can be tough too. But when you're more of a Fort Knox, meaning it's hard to even start any offense, that can be just frustrating. So when you have a solid fort, it's going to take that much longer for the offensive player to crack the code to get to you. Which is why I say, offense, it puts points on the board, but defense wins championships, meaning gets you the W. And with all of these 5 keys married together, if you can keep these in mind when you're on defense, you won't stress as much, especially when you're dealing with certain type of players. Because I see people complain about players that, they try to do a lot of mix-ups or a lot of 50-50s, or they love abusing plus frames, and just different types of oppression in the form of offense that can be mitigated. It's just, in a lot of cases, players are frustrated, or they let the mental tear wear down on them, and they end up playing bad defense. Like, they start excessively ducking, or they're stepping the wrong way, or they're excessively stepping for no reason. They're not paying attention to where their life lead is, what the clock is. If there are resources on the screen, like EX bars, super, how much bar they got, all of that comes into play. And this is why each factor is important. You really can't, if you want to be strong in defense, you really can't neglect any of these, especially when it comes to practice. When it comes to practice, you want to practice all 5 of these. You want to be paying attention. You want to be blocking. You want to make those good reads and reactions. You want punishment. You want good defensive spacing. And again, all of these things can be sharpened. People ask me, one thing that they do ask me, I should say, is, how did you get your whiff punishment to the way that you have it? And one thing I tell them is that, I consistently practice that. I usually take, say, a character that I'm using. I learn what moves they have that are good for whiff punishing and controlling space. Like right now, I'm learning Fakaram. And moves that I just noticed that he has that are good for whiff punishing are forward 2-1, forward 1+2, down forward 2-3, back 1, just moves like that. And once you learn what those moves are, how they work, and how effective they are in playing the spacing game, because you got to have spacing in order to whiff punish well. You then, okay, I know these moves, now application in battle as far as range and when to use them. Because another good thing about, or another key factor you need to incorporate when it comes to whiff punishing is how fast your response move is and how bad on recovery the move that they whiffed is. Because yes, that is a factor. Same way in block punishment, where you have to know the negative frames on block in order to respond with the proper move. You have to also know that as far as whiff recovery frames, and then the response you use for that. Because same as on block punishment, if you do not use the correct move, you will miss the punish, and in some cases get punished for trying to punish. Same thing applies with punishment. If the move recovers too fast and you use a move that is way too slow, you're gonna miss the opportunity and then, like I said, get punished in the process of trying to punish. So that is an important thing to remember. So with punishment, spacing is definitely a thing. Of course, it's a thing on defense, period. But when you're trying to punish, spacing is definitely a factor. And one technique that I use to practice spacing is it doesn't matter what character, I usually pick a character, make them do like a string or a sequence of buttons, and then I practice hovering within that range of, what's effective, what move helps me at this range. Like, okay, I'm hovering, I'm seeing the string they're doing.
Henry.
It reaches out to about 1.5, maybe range 2, or whatever range it reaches to. Now, I need to know the range I need to hover at and what moves will work best for me when they whiff something. So again, decision making and your awareness kicks in here. Your spacing kicks in here. Your reactions and reads kick in here, and your punishment kick in there. Only thing you're not doing in this case is blocking, because obviously with punishing, you're moving more so than blocking. But to sum all this up, these are the 5 keys in order to be strong and solid at defense. You have to marry all of them together. Same way as I explained as far as offense in the last episode, you have to marry all these factors together in order to be solid all around. Be the all-around player. To me, you have players who super excel in maybe one area, and then okay in another area, and then bad in this area, and not too great in this area, and then applause. To me, the most effective player is the all-around player, because the all-around player has skill stretched out in everything. Of course, you can hone them and be all around and excel in everything, which makes you just ridiculous. But when you're all around, you're that much more scarier. Like in basketball, when you have a player that can play both sides of the ball on offense and defense, and they can make plays and stuff like that, they're that much more dangerous. Same thing applies in fight games. When you're all around in defense, like, oh yeah, he blocks well, or she blocks well, awareness is there, the reads and reactions, punishment, defensive spacing, on point all around. And again, you're that much harder to fight. The key is to make it harder for your opponent. And when you can make it harder for your opponent, your job then becomes a little easier. Because in a lot of matches, when you play some solid defense, in most cases, it's just pretty much letting the opponent kill themselves. And you didn't even really have to play. It's some matches I don't really have to play much offense at all. Just to keep it a buck. Because the player is overly exerting themselves on offense and not really playing much defense at all. Hence the players who love to block with their face. And on the other end, those be the same players that are crying in groups talking about, oh man, people whack, they're cowards, they don't like to play off. No, they're playing smart and countering your style. It's you that is the dummy and doesn't want to adjust. You stuck in your own ways and you don't want to adapt. And yes, adaptation is part of defense too, as well. But that falls under awareness too, because in order to adapt, you have to be aware. If you're not aware, you'll never adapt. Like, that won't even be a factor. So now I'm going to go into the per se the cons of defense, or I don't even really want to say the cons specifically of defense, but being overly defensive. I'll touch on that. Now, the problem with being overly defensive is that in a lot of cases, you'll put yourself in a position where you're only looking to try to react to everything. I wonder if I would rather give y'all a visual cue of things. Actually, let me see if I could. I'm going to bring up an example. I think they saved those matches from last night. Hold on, y'all. Give me one quick second. You know, just to give a bit of a visual aid. Let's see here. Okay. Let me, before I bring it up, I'm gonna just, make sure we got all this good and together. Down, and then put that down. Okay, yeah, pretty much that. Dime, and that's something that I used to do like years ago, and I began to see the flaw in that. Like, yes, it's strong as a defensive quality, but it's not necessarily strong defense, if that makes sense. It's like the turtle that overly turtles. They're literally only looking for that mistake, and they're not advancing. Oh no, I didn't favor that. That's why. Trying to look for an example. Let's see. Oh no, I don't have that. I wish I would have favored at least one of the matches, but let me see here. Let's see. Let me switch it up real quick. Okay, so. Oops, hold on. There we go. So, case in point. Let me just go to practice mode. We're going to do a little visual cueing here.
Welcome to the King of Iron Fist Tournament 7. Fakulam. Panda.
I'm sorry, I just like Infinite Azure. That's I love the color of the background, and then the track on the default track on it I like. But so, as I mentioned to y'all about knowing your range. Now, the good part about them kind of enhancing practice mode is that they did put the range that you stand from your opponent. Of course, right now, this is range 2. Remember how I told you knowing your ranges, it benefits you on both sides of the spectrum? Well, it literally does, because when you are able to establish your range, you'll know what to do on either offense or defense. So, I'm going to give a visual example of that. So, let's say command capture, of course. I recommend doing this in practice mode the most because this allows you to recreate things you may have saw. That's why it's really good that they re-added the My Replay feature. I don't know why they got rid of it in the first place, because that's what made practicing in Tag 2 pretty solid, because you had the footage to go back to, and if you maybe saw something during that match that you lost to, you could then do this command capture and recreate it and see your solutions that you could do against it. So now we know bears have most of them like to whip cut. We're down for a 2-1. Now this is about range 2.5 right here. So we know max range of this move is like 2.5, meaning you can get launched if you're within that range. So I'm gonna command capture that. Now me, of course, Baccarat. Who's that? Oh, Panther. Thanks for the host, brother. Take that down. Okay.
Mr. Black.
So,
I'm resigning my position
again, command capture that.
I've got to get
Now,
away.
I'm at,
No, Ryan,
as you can see, we're
understand
both
it.
at 2.5.
Better to be hurt a little bit now.
So,
but
being at this
then a lot
range,
later on.
that's one move that you have to put in your mind that it's possible for them to do it. And when you hover around that range and then they do it, see how that registered as a punish? Of course, that's negative 15, so you can launch it. Or that's negative 16, excuse me. So you can launch it. So if you have a 15 or 16 frame launcher, go for it. You know? Of course, if you're any closer, you definitely go for the punish. Yeah, they legs a little too short. Oh my god, I hate ears. I wonder what. Oh, I might have to do that. No, I'm doing it wrong. Is that game audio a bit loud? Hold on. Let me adjust that. Turn it down a bit. 78. How's that? Is that a bit better? Is that a bit better? Let me know in the chats. Okay, that's better. Okay. So. It's because they little legs. It's just so hard to get some. You get the point though. So 225. You know the frames, how negative it is. And then there you go. So you know your range. Your awareness comes from knowing the range that you at. Knowing the frames of the move, like how negative it is on block. And then of course with knowing that, knowing what move to respond with. And then of course executing. Now, of course, I mentioned the whiffing. As you can see, that was blocked. Now they go for it if you're outside of the range of the effective move, then the whiff is more likely to occur. As you see, you get a big punish because now, of course, your spacing has to be on point because if you block, then your whip punish attempt may fail. You gotta go for something else. So, as you can see, knowing the ranges of certain moves, and of course, the beautiful part about command capture is that you can do various moves. So, that's a favorite move of the Bears. So, that move reaches from about 2.5, whiffs at about 3. So, let's say you're fighting a bear, and, the common thing that they do, just poke at your legs with down back 2. So, it's a bit annoying. So, see that? Like, okay, you keep poking me, do it again. Do it one time. Damn, got hit again. Now you stand. But you see you keep getting hit. Now, with this, here's the part where spacing and neutral comes into play. So, say you fighting that bear player. Let's say you get hit by the first one. Then they start to move. Stay there. And right there, your opportunity to catch them is right there. So you say, yeah, I got hit. Punish. So, I got hit. Punish. And that comes from data too. Like I said, compiling the data and making the read that they're gonna do it again and then reacting. And once you really gotta get stuff, what they like to do, when they like to do it, it makes punishing that much easier. And then of course, there's other responses too, because you can low parry. But why would you do that unless it's necessary? I quite personally, the way I feel about low parrying is that do it on the lows that are particularly safe on block. See, that's negative 13, so you could even get a wild standing punish from that. But the lows that are generally safe is when you want to apply low parry. Like things that are low and they're safe, that's when low parry is to me the most effective, because why would you want to low parry something that if you block it you get bigger damage? Again, awareness comes into play. When you know what you're blocking and you know what to respond with, you then can make the decision that you need to make and punish how you need to. You know what I'm saying? So on lows that are a bit more safe on block, right? Usually your generic down forward, a little quick low slide, the down jab or the dig jab that is referred to. Like they say moving. You poke me with that. And then even then you could space even then, but if you're just within up close range, then you make the read, they're gonna go low. Because one easy read to make when you're playing defense is, when both of your life bars are both low and they want that quick, safe response. That's why I tell players all the time, going low to get the W is one of the worst decisions you can make, because that's an easy read. Because they're like, what's the safest thing you could do? A quick load. That's usually, and I'm not saying that's a bad thought to have in your mind, because you're right. It is quote unquote low risk, but if you find a player that's aware and they like, oh, my life low, okay, a low might come, and they make that read, and then God forbid they got rage. Well, no, they're gonna have rage because their life is low, so they have rage, and then they just make that clutch read, and then you lose. I've seen that happen like so many times, and it hurts the heart every time I see it. I was like, oh my God, they could have won. But typically, and then of course, if you know how to space and you make it whiff, of course, again. Now, of course, people aren't blatantly just gonna do, down four like just raw like that. But just giving you examples of knowing how to use your move, and they do try to take the risk, and they get punished. Movement is a big factor in this game. Like, movement exists in all fighters, don't get me wrong, but in 3D fighters, since it's a third plane of movement to use, which is sidestepping, you definitely got to keep that in mind when you're playing. So, because even some moves you can, step and get out of range of, but the problem is that some players overly do it. Like, they try to step everything. And with that, as you can see, the time, all you have to do is alter your timing when you're doing stuff, and then you can catch side steps. But, hold on. Who messaged me? Hold on. Maybe in a sec. Okay, let me take that down. Uh-oh. Hold on. Dashboard. There we go. Okay, so let me get the music back popping. You feel me? Get my boy Ginseng popping again. Alright, so back to this. So again, and if they try to use a lot of safe loads, that's when the low period probably should come into play. Like, take the time to take in and compile your data, and then once you have, make the read. Like, okay, so about that range, you like to run up, and then do down forward. So, then once you do that, oh, there goes that read. Get a little bit of damage, and then see they still doing it now. Okay, maybe I'll space so I can get bigger damage. That low parry damage is cool, but I want to make it hurt a little more. Then they reach a point where they don't even want to do that no more. And then let's see. Maybe they start just bagging up. Okay. And they typically want you to chase them when they do that. So let's say you stop them from, doing much of anything, and then they just start running. Then you take the space. You do not just let them run. You take the space. And then, make them block. Like I said, I like to use jab, maybe sidestep down for one, just to make them respect, and then do little pokes. You can even incorporate grabs here. And people say, well, grabs are easier to break. Yes, in this game they are, but one factor that people tend to neglect when it comes to grabs still is that it resets the neutral. And that allows you to get a little breathing time to, you know, reassess what's going on. Now, case in point, you know, okay, do that. No, actually, I'm gonna do this. So let's say they're running. Alright. You know, they running. And then you. They back dashing. They break the grab. Now you're at neutral. Now if they decided to stick out a button after that, you were already at the range. You're already at the range to catch a whiff. Now, let me show an example of that. Like this is especially like players who excessively turtle. So, case in point, backdashing. Let me record that. Hold on. So yeah, they're backdashing. They look to break. And they just try to toss out a launcher. I know y'all done seen that like a million times. So, when they backdashing. And then even if they just throw out a jab again. So, chase them down. Did that wrong. I gotta make sure I get the grab. You know, I did that just to make it break the grab. So as you can see, they whiffed the jab. Even on a whiff jab, you can make the whiff punish call. But your reactions have to be on point to do that. So one more time. I didn't mean to do that. That's a punish. That was a punish. And then of course, if you break the grab, now I'm gonna do less. Cause I'm doing the 2 over and over just to register the throw break. So let's see. Grab. Ooh, that's a trade. And trades are good to get too as well. Cause like, and trades like that usually happen where they're trying to mash something out immediately. So when it comes to a trade situation like that, you let me see, what's the advantage that you have? Oops, okay, so they're +3. They're +3. Now, whatever they respond with after that is, you know, it's on them. But if they try to chuck out a launcher, just know that launchers tend to start generally for the cast at around 15-16 frames. Now, depending, like I said, on what you decide to respond with, because I'm at negative, of course, if you break the grab. But you have to consider when you break the grab, you have to consider the range we at. Once you do the throw break. See how far we are? I'm damn near at range 3 off that break. So with me being at that range, you know, I know the moves I could do from right there. One of them being 4-4-1 +2. So you have to be careful. As far as the player who broke the grab, you have to be careful on what you use, and then the player on defense, you have to be aware of what they stick out when you're trying to play the defense and then get that whiff punish. And just like I said, pay attention to the range that you're at, and then once you establish that, you're like, all right, I know what I can use right here. Now I just have to be aware and pay attention to how they react or what they do after they break the grab, and then go from there. Like I said, that trade could happen, or they could completely whiff their attempt, and then you get that as a punish. You have to know your options. When you that far back, from this distance with Fakaram, that's probably gonna be your go-to. Primarily that. Either that, it will be that or that move. So let me see about range 3. Yep. So that's gonna be your primary go-to. Now on block, that's negative 14. But this is negative 2, but it has pushback. So punishing it is, not going to be a common thing. Especially if you space yourself when you use it. If you space yourself when you use it, it's going to be that much harder to deal with. So, because they see, it's negative. Yeah, I can't press a button right after that. But if you try to immediately challenge with something that may not reach, or make a bad decision in that case, I can then turn that into an opportunity. That's why it's important to know range, and it's important to understand when to go for things and when not to go for things. But hopefully that let me see here. I just got a message. Sorry about that. Yeah, but hopefully, somebody said they want to watch the podcast. Oh, that's dope. Haha, message about that. But that's why it's important though to be aware of what's going on. Because right there in this situation I just showed, if your awareness isn't high and you make a mistake, you could actually pay for trying to punish. Like, yeah, it's negative 13, and your mind may be to immediately, was my 13 or 12 frame move or whatever move that I got that could punish that, and that's how you go. And I'm not going to necessarily say that's incorrect thinking, because that's actually correct thinking in the sense of the concept of punishment. Oh, this is negative, I go to punish. But then, like I said, you have to incorporate the other factors. And this is where awareness goes in. This is what separates okay defensive play to great defensive play. So with that scenario I just showed you, the 4-4-4, it has the pushback and it's negative 13. So in that instance, it's now, well, what do I do to put me in the best situation to punish that? And I can tell you, the move is most effective from range 3. So as the defensive player, you want to set yourself at a range to make it whiff. Since you know it reaches 3 character spaces, you then want to put yourself just outside of 3 to make it whiff, because that move is not great on whiff. As a matter of fact, a lot of Fakaram stuff on whiff is death for him. So you have to place your strikes for real. But with dealing with 4-4-4, you want to put yourself just outside of range 3 to make it whiff and then react then. Because on block, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of, if not most of the cast can't punish it because of its reach and the fact that it pushes back, even though it's negative 13. This is why, or this is part of what makes Tekken a somewhat challenging game, because there's so many intricacies to moves where you have to sit down and go into the practice lab and practice specifically, like specific things. Even though you technically should be doing this in every fighting game in order to better prepare yourself and strengthen your toolkit and all that, this, that, and the third. But in certain games, labbing is an even more integral factor, if that makes sense. Meaning oh yeah, I definitely gotta lab this, or oh yeah, I definitely gotta, because it's important, especially if you wanna get stronger in that aspect. So that's pretty much defense in a nutshell. And the 5 factors as I presented to y'all, of course, let's just run through the slide again. Blocking, awareness, reads, reactions, punishment, defensive spacing. These are the 5 keys to playing some strong D. If you can play some strong D, like I said, you will be that much more of a task to deal with. Like when somebody, especially the look on some players' faces when they have to go against somebody that's strong at defense, they're like, oh man, so I gotta be a little more careful. But again, that's said, did I make a slide for Fagaron's broken hurt boxes? No, I didn't, unfortunately. That's a whole nother issue. You gotta have to talk to Namco about that. But it's all good, man. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, as far as defense, those are the 5 factors. Blocking, awareness, reads and reactions, punishment, defensive spacing. If you marry all of those, I promise you, your defense will get even stronger, and you'll all around progress the way you want to. But you have to consistently practice these things. You are absolutely correct, Holy Fact, but I throw that in an awareness because that fits under the awareness boat. Even though adaptation is a general thing, it's really a general thing, because it can apply on both sides. But when I'm talking about defense, I just throw it under awareness, because in order to adapt to something, you have to be aware of it happening. If that makes sense. You have to, know what's happening. Because if you don't know what the hell is going on, how the hell are you going to adapt? Adaptation comes from awareness and knowledge. And if you don't have the first 2, you're not going to get to that third part. But you are absolutely correct. But yeah, this is the part of the podcast where I open up questions, and experiences from the viewers. So the floor is now on y'all to ask questions in the chat. Let me see. As a new player, what would you say to people who have no idea what they got hit by, especially with Tekken's 199 moves and strings for each character? Well, first off, one thing I try to stress to new players is that don't let the move list overwhelm you, because 9 times out of 10, you're only going to see maybe 25 to 30% of that move list. Of course, if you want to take the time to learn every single move, I'm not going to say it doesn't help, but the stuff that you should focus on are the key things of the said character, because you're going to see those the most. Because a lot of the obscure moves that you don't see are usually like very punishable, very slow on startup, all that. Enoch, you are correct. Defense wins championships. I said that earlier in the podcast, so I definitely agree with that. But yeah, for the newer players, I would say focus, learn the key stuff of the matchup, the key moves of the matchups, especially if you're the ones you're having the most trouble with. You definitely learn that, because I can practically 100% assure you, you're going to see that 30% that I'm mentioning the most when you fight any player of the character. So be sure to learn those things, learn what they are, how to combat against them. Those are the keys to help you navigate that warrior. Because a lot of new players, they get overwhelmed by the move list and can't let it overwhelm you. Because, well, I won't say not let it overwhelm you, but don't let it overtake your entire mind. Because, like, oh man, it's like 80 moves. Jesus, that's a lot of moves. I got to know how to combat all of them. I'm like, yes and no, because out of those 80 moves, you may see 20. I'm just saying, you might see 20. And yeah, if you have a sparring partner, that definitely helps. That goes a long way in practicing matchups and defense. If you find, especially the characters that you have the most trouble with, if you get in contact with a player that's really good with that character, make them your training partner and have them teach you things about the matchup, the ins and outs. But you have to marry that with practicing on your own as well. That's the only way you're going to get the maximum result that you want to get. Because other than that, it's futile, and then you'll be wasting your time and you feel like you're not going anywhere. But that's because you're not doing everything that you need to do to improve your defense. Also, as I mentioned, or as you saw me in the visual example that I gave, to practice, you have to know what to practice, how to practice, and then once you've done the first two, applying it in an actual match. This goes into training because all you're doing at the end of the day, you're training your reactions and you're building up your knowledge at the same time. And this is what I mean by being able to train yourself to learn how to read people better and react to things better. You're doing that when you go to practice mode and do these things. You know what? Holy fact, that is a good point. The reason why the move list is so daunting is because it's not written in easy to follow fashion, strings that have mix-ups, etc. Well, to be fair though, that is a good point. Like I said, I'm not saying your point is wrong, but to be fair, most fighting games don't really tell you if there's a mix-up or a mix-up potential from the move, or if it has, high, low. Like, that comes from going into the practice mode and finding that out for yourself. Because all move list does is give you notation and then maybe how negative it is. But you still have to go in practice mode and actually practice against it so you can be able to defend against it. I don't know any move list that really is that detailed right off rip, telling you everything about said move. That would be helpful. I'm not gonna lie to you. That if it told you everything about the move, like, oh yeah, it's gonna do this, do that. Well, said, what do I think of Kazuya's buff? It made him that much scarier to deal with. It made his 50-50 game legitimately deadly. But, the only problem with it is that making the Hell Sweep track even to his weak side, pretty much, you know, of course you can't step it. You can still sidewalk it. So a lot of people though were making it seem like it was the end of the world and you no longer could deal with it at all. But most people's retort to it was to sidestep, which I guess, you know, was cool, but that's not the only way to get by it. And that's how most people are reacting to it, as that was the only means of getting away from it, which is really not. Especially if you're playing a Mishima player, and like I said, one of the keys to solid defense is being able to be aware. Okay, you're fighting a Mishima player, so you got to be aware. Then once you're aware, you can make the read, and then once you make the read, you block, and then you react accordingly through punishment. And of course, you put yourself at a range, defensive spacing, to be able to, like I said, all 5 of these, you can see right there in that sequence, right there, all 5 of those things were exercised right then and there in that scenario I just presented. And is it Makovo XO? How do you say your Twitch name? I hate messing up Twitch names, so if you could tell me how to say it, let me know in the chat. But definitely appreciate the follow. Thank you for the follow. Just spell it out. Okay. Makovio XO. I guess we'll do that. But yeah, but right then and there, I just exercised, like I said, these 5 keys. The awareness was there, because your awareness, you pretty much gathering the data of the Mishima player. Mac OVOXO. Okay, that's cool. Okay, but yeah, like I said, the defensive keys, you didn't exercise those. So your awareness, of course, you're paying attention to the Mishima player, when they like the Hell Sweep and where they like the Hell Sweep from. So the awareness is right there. Next, now that your awareness, you took in the data, you can then make the read to proceed to block it. And then you will react, punish, and of course, during that, you put yourself at a space to where you can do that. So all 5 of these keys were literally exercised in order to get said result, which is the defense needed to stop the Hell Sweep. But again, people made it seem like it was the total end of the world when it tracked on both sides. It just means you can't just step whenever you feel like it. It's still a strange buff though, because I don't really feel Kazuya needed that, but I guess they felt he needed that. And then of course the electrics. Oh my god, I think I'm more annoyed by that than the Hell Sweep, because you already have people that love to just chuck out electric just because, but now they're really gonna chuck it out since it recovers faster. So I mean, it's still a high though. I think it'd been even more absurd if it became a mid. If it went way back to the Dark Ages and became a mid, you know. Of course, Devil Cast still has the mid one, but if it was like that around the board, my god, I would hate Mishimas for real then. But that's my thoughts on that. But if anybody else in the chat have any questions, you know, I play Mishimas nowadays to an extent. I don't like heavily play. Like I just started tweaking around with Devil Jin a little bit again, and I play regular Jin though. Now I play regular Jin. He's not a full-on Mishima, but he still has wave dash and mix-ups and all that. But or mix up potential, I should say, out of all that. But Cavs, I don't play them a whole lot. Like I can move with them and stuff like that, but I wouldn't call myself a Kazuya player. Do I only play Tekken? No. I can play Street Fighter V as well. I started. I played Grand Blue. I haven't, and that was when I was over my boy Footwork house, but I haven't dove into it because I haven't bought it yet. And that's partly, part of me is procrastinating on buying it. Oh, you Mayweather? Okay. Oh, okay, well, thanks for tuning into the stream. Definitely appreciate it. But no, Taka, I don't just play Tekken. I actually, there's one point I was playing a myriad of fighters, like back during Tag 2. I was playing that. I was playing Mortal Kombat X. I was playing Street Fighter V. I was playing like multiple fighting games. That's one reason why, a lot of people when they play me, they say your fundamentals are pretty solid. That's because I can play multiple fighters. So, and that's pretty much was the origin of me coming into fighting games. When I met all the homies of Korn and joined Korn when I first started. And the rule there was you wasn't just playing one game. So, like I said, we were playing that. We were playing Soul Calibur. We were playing Street Fighter. Around that time when that first started, because that was about a decade or so ago now, or I think about 9-10 years ago, when we all met and started to join up. Yeah, we was playing everything: Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Tag 2, Mortal Kombat X when that dropped, like just a host of games. And that's what helped all our fundamentals. All of us that came from that era helped our fundamentals, and then we just translated to a different game. But Mayweather, I play on pad, and the pad that I play on, I saw your question about that. I play on the Hori Fighting Commander. I love this pad. It reminds me of the old Sega Genesis controllers, because that's, since I'm a quote-unquote boomer. I don't know who started that, but whatever. But yeah, I play on this, and very good pad. I have more than one actually. I have about 2 of them. I'm thinking about getting a third one, because I just love this pad that much, because that one still works too. The second one I just showed, that one still works. Great pad, especially for movement and Tekken. Like, this D-pad is on point, and I struggled to find a pad that like accommodates my hands, because I have large hands. So like the DS4 pad, just no. Like, look at my hand when I touch this pad. Look at that. I'm covering up most of the pad. Like, that just lets you know how large my hands is. So, with me covering up the pad like this, it's not always that comfortable. So, with this pad though, I still got room because it's wide right here, and I just rest my hands and then move my thumb like how I need to. Comfort is important when you playing Tekken. Like, you want to play to maximum. You want to play to maximum efficiency. Your tool of choice that you play on has to accommodate you. Yeah, I can. There's actually there's a player from Italy. His name is Harry Potter, and he can. Well, I know at his prime for sure when he was a little younger, he knew how to light dash on pad, which is insane to me. On stick is much more conceivable to see, because on stick you're moving your whole wrist as opposed to just your thumb. But to be able to light dash on pad, you know how fast you have to be moving your thumb, and you have to place your thumb on the D-pad in such a manner to even get the vibration to be consistent. So that was just some freak of nature stuff when you're doing that. Tight. You don't do movement with the tip of your finger? Nah. Like I said, again, I got large hands, so my thumb is big enough to to rest in between the grooves and then just move the middle part of my thumb. Yeah, so said Bass's don't sell that pad in the West. Did I order it from Japan? No, you can actually order this on Amazon, and I heard Walmart was selling this pad, which is weird. But I had a homie, I think he told me he got it from Walmart. So I was like, oh, Walmart selling Hori pad? But yeah, you can order it off of Amazon. It only costs, I think $30. $30 or $40, something like that. I don't know what the current cost is right now because I haven't looked at it because it's been a while since I bought these pads. But yeah, go to Amazon and you can order it, and it'll get to you in days. And then it's the other great thing about this pad is that it does not take long to break in. I say one good long session on day one, and by, let's say, about a week or so later, your pad, it'll feel accustomed to you then. So it doesn't take long. That's another pro about this pad. Whereas a DS4 pad, it takes so damn long to break in, and then it dies out on you fast. But the newer DS4 pads are a little better. I know the first generation ones, which is this one, because this is a custom pad. As you can see, this was from when I went to Frosty Fawcett's in the year 2017. So this is the first generation DS4. The AD pad's not really that great. And but the newer generation one is better. Yo, Yusef, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Well, if anybody has any more questions about defense in fighting games, or to quote unquote maybe share an experience where they may have needed help with defense or whatever, the floor is open to you guys. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the podcast because I really get to interact with you guys the most and hear y'all thoughts and opinions and everything, and see where y'all head at when it comes to playing fighting games, and the whole nine. But I hope everybody is enjoying this Good Friday as well and staying safe. Like I said, we still dealing with this coronavirus nonsense. I am so over it. I'm sick of being just work and then home. I guess the only pro to this situation is that I do have a girlfriend that I could still be with and get that time in, so I guess there's a plus there. But anyway, I'm just ready to be able to go to locals again. Like this online only play is not for me. I'm not the biggest fan of online. I only use it as a tool to just expose myself to play styles and various matchups, but for the most part, I don't heavily care for online because, lag and stuff like that, the typical stuff that people don't like. But, just to be able to go out again, like for my girl's birthday, we couldn't even celebrate. Her birthday was March 23rd, and we couldn't celebrate like how we wanted to because everything was closed. So, yeah, definitely waiting for that. But Yusef, you brought up how to deal with somebody who has great defense, and I kind of mentioned that. Dealing with a strong defense, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a task, but it can be done, and it takes a bit of playing solid defense yourself and then forcing them to overextend. As I mentioned earlier, bringing up the turtle player, or the player that just loves to wait for something to happen and then react and punish. Now, the key to beating them is to, one, get the life lead. 2, use defense against them, meaning you turtle back, but get the life lead. That's the first step. And then, of course, which will lead to third, force them to overextend and then punish them. That's how you begin to turn. You have to shift gears. You want to go on the offense and get that life lead because, again, you don't have to get a dramatic life lead. You just have to get a life lead. One thing that people tend to do, they think they need a big life lead in order to crack them open. No, because you have to remember, you could be down 1% in life, but the opponent is down 1%, meaning if you are in the lead by 1%, you're going to win because you're up by 1%. That's like the damn Super Bowl. The score is like they're up by a field goal. It's not a big lead, but guess what? I'm in the lead, and if you don't tie it up or pass that 3 points, you're going to lose. You have to think like that when you're fighting a turtle, because turtles are thinking minuscule themselves. They're thinking in a manner, all I need them to do is just make a mistake and I'm good. I ain't got to overextend, yada, yada, yada. So what if your defense isn't as good as theirs once you get a life lead? Yusef, that is a very good question. Now, thing with turtles aren't great at offense. Like, their offense usually isn't even in the slightest bit scary because that goes against their play style if they're generally a turtle. So your defense might not be as good. Okay, the key here, you want them to try to play offense. And like I said, in a lot of cases, their offense isn't as great. Meaning, yeah, your defense might not be that great, but with sensible knowledge, you should be able to identify when someone does something blatantly stupid. And then, now, of course, reactions differ because it's based on how well you train them, not your age. Has nothing to do with age. How well you train your reactions. And you have to be able to react accordingly. Or if you know their offense isn't that good, but your offense is better than theirs, you can get them, let's say you get them to overextend, and then you say you do get the punish that you need to punish them. Then after that, I would suggest putting them in a whole lot of pressure after that. Like, let's say you're a Mishima player and you start the Hell Sweep Vortex. I would start that and get them, because the key to making a turtle come out of their shell is to get them to try to react to something. And then once you can get them to overextend and make a mistake, which I'll be 100 with you, they're highly more likely to make that mistake trying to assert offense. But see, that's where you want to get them to do. You want them to play offense, because most of the times they can't play offense. They don't excel. They don't excel in that department. So you have to get them to try to play that, because one key thing about fighting games, people have to realize it's a mental as much as playing, as much as playing on this. It's a mental battle just as much as executing on this or stick or whatever you play on. And when you can mentally get into a player's head and take them out of their comfort zone, you've done half the job. Once you've done that, now it's executing your game plan. Because when you get a player to jump out of their comfort zone, they almost look like a completely different player because they're out of their comfort zone. And you'll have the greatest form of success in beating them if you can get them out of their comfort zone or make them uncomfortable, because now they're in a place that they're not used to. And unfamiliarity can trump a lot of people because you don't know what to expect or you don't know how to navigate, this, that, and the third. But that's how you do that. That's how you deal with somebody who overly turtles or is like overly defensive and you can't break their shell per se, or you're having a hard time breaking their shell. No problem, Yusuf. Like I said, the floor is further open to those. If anybody else in the chat has questions, like I said, I am definitely willing to help answer and give you a better insight on defense in general, or if I could help you get better at defense yourself. Because I know a lot of people, like I said, usually when it comes down to a choice between the two, they choose offense first. And that's simply because a lot of people just like to hit buttons. And I'm not gonna say that's totally a bad thing, but I'm just going off the common mind state of most players, and most players want to hit buttons. So they're like, okay, I just want to learn the offense. I want the big combos, I want the cool looking setups, this, that, and the third. And most team defense is boring. But in my honest opinion, I love watching amazing defense, because to be able to block like a whole bunch of pressure, block a whole bunch of mix-ups, this, that, and the third, and then punish after doing all it, I get just as hype as seeing some crazy offensive stuff. I don't know about you, but I love the entire science of fighting games. I appreciate both sides of fighting games. I appreciate the offense and I appreciate the defense, because both of them are important. Both of them are. But nowadays, I try to lean toward being an all-around player. There was a point where I was overly turtleish and just waiting on somebody to make a mistake or whatever. And then once people saw that, they then started to, try to force me to play more offense. And then, once I saw that weakness, I looked to correct it and push myself to lean toward being more all around. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Holy fact. That name is funny to me. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's always dope. You just see somebody getting just pressured to death and they block off. It's really impressive to me when I'm watching like Marvel or Dragon Ball and you just block a damn blender of buttons and then push block or whatever and then punish them. I lose my mind when I see stuff like, especially in games like that, because those are games where you could be blocking for forever. Like if a person knows like just long block strings of pressure, you could be blocking for like 10 seconds or more in some instances. So it's like, dog, what? So it's watching some solid defense is just as ridiculous as watching solid offense, because again, I appreciate the science of fighting games in general. And Zilla, what's going on, man? What's happening? AKA DTE Zilla. Also a damn Kazuya player. Well, Mishima player. He doesn't just play Kazuya, he plays Heihachi too. And he doesn't dabble much with Devil Jin, but he generally plays Mishimas. But what's going on, bro? But yeah, like I said, I appreciate the science of fighting games all around. So just as much as a crazy offense can be, I love crazy defense too. But again, if anybody has any more questions, concerns, that whole nine, you know, like I said, this is the floor for y'all. I've done my, first half of it, which is break down and go over defense. So, now I want to hear from y'all, because I will be wrapping up the stream or the podcast in general in about roughly 10 minutes.
Let it ride out.
Trying to make these concise 2-hour podcasts. Just, so of course the first 2 episodes were pretty lengthy, but like I said, that was us starting off the podcast and trying to get the flow down. Now, I'm feeling pretty comfortable doing this now, so it's easier. So now I'm looking to get to that 2-hour mark. Now, if we go a little past that because people are really feeling it, then it is what it is. But the general length, trying to push it, 2 hours. Said, no, this insight was much needed because I suffer from being overly defensive. Yeah, Dom, being overly defensive, that's when defense can be bad. Because when you're overly defensive, you're not really controlling the match. You have to know when to be defensive and then when to translate that defense into offense and then play offense. You have to know how to do that. That's why being an all-around player is very important, because when you're all around, you can dance between the two and switch up tempos when you need to. Some of the most dangerous players are the players that can dance and switch up tempos like that, because it's like, damn, 1 minute they was rushing me down, now I can't throw out nothing risky, and this was just 1 round ago. When you can do that, you're very dangerous, and then that adds to you being unpredictable too. So I can't KBD, and it's putting me off advancing to the next level. I stopped playing since months and recently went back to practice. Tensujin, there are a lot of tutorials on movement, specifically Korean backdashing. I definitely would hit the YouTube up and watch those and consistently practice. One thing I recommend doing is practice on both sides. Try doing 15 minutes of time on both sides, and then do it till it begins to feel natural. And don't try to do a bunch of them. Gradually work your way up doing it. So if you do one, then do that for 15 minutes, alternate to the other side, and then, because remember, this is muscle memory. All you're doing is training your muscles to be able to do this said movement. And then once you feel comfortable with doing the one, then gradually increase the reps. And then once you feel more comfortable, then it feels natural, then before you know it, you're doing it. And then it just feels natural. But always practice on both sides. Do not be a one-side warrior, because when you're a one-side warrior, that weakness is going to show itself very fast. Very, very fast. Said go D-pad. Well, no. Holy is really what you're comfortable on, because I've seen people play on the analog stick and they can move. So it's whatever you find comfortable. Your comfort zone. There's nothing correct to play on, or there's nothing that's really gonna truly give you an advantage without practicing and honing it. And I think the problem with a lot of players is that they try to find that. They try to, what edge can I get to make this, such and such. I'm telling you right now, if you dedicate yourself and practice over and over, that's the best scenario. Oh, I've seen it. It blew my mind, but I've seen it. It's definitely possible. Yo, Eli, what's good, bro? I know you probably on that Final Fantasy remake. By the way, which of course came out at midnight. Some people had it a little earlier, but the official date was midnight. I have not bought it yet. Not sure if I'm gonna buy it. It's not that I don't like Final Fantasy. It's not one of them games that were highly on my radar, but it does look good. And I did play the demo, and the demo was good. So, like, again, I'm not saying it's bad. It definitely, and then I watched K-Brad streaming on his stream, and I was impressed. So it's definitely, you definitely tell that they put time into that game. You definitely tell. Definitely a solid release. If you're into Final Fantasy, I will recommend that if you are into that series, pick that game up. I will say that, just off of what I've seen. And like I said, I played the demo, and the demo felt good. And visually, that game is stunning to look at. Like, oh, you beat it? Damn. So you chill? Damn, you beat it already? Jesus. Well, you beat the main story. I don't know. You probably haven't 100%ed it yet, but you probably beat the main story. Now, if you 100%ed it, I'd be like, oh yeah, you a madman. Like, damn, that quick? But I mean, hey, look, we got all the time in the world due to this corona. Due to that, we got time. We definitely got time. But well, yeah, I'm glad that I was able to do this episode today, because I had meant to do it last Saturday, but something popped up and kind of turned things upside down a little bit, so had to deal with that. So once I saw I was off work today, I was like, oh, I could do it today, bet. So glad I was able to do this episode, because I really wanted to touch on this the most, because it's a concept in fighting games that's one of the more neglected concepts. So I hope that after watching this, or taking in this episode, that it could help you. This will be up on my YouTube page today, so be sure to subscribe to that page, L Train's Fighting Dojo. So in case you want to watch it on there, and I'm gonna archive it on here as well too, so you will have access to it, regardless whether on Twitch or YouTube. Be sure to check it out. Definitely a lot of information dropped, and I just hope that it helps you. But just to give one final quick synopsis before we wrap up and end it here, just to give you a quick understanding. So why be so defensive? Just to play off the name of the episode. The purpose of defense is to protect, prevent, and seize. Playing a great defense makes it that much harder for the opponent and helps increase one's chance of winning. And with that being said, comes the 5 keys of defense: blocking, awareness, reads, reactions, punishment, defensive spacing. So, if you marry all those things together, I promise you your defensive game will become that much tighter, because it comes with practice and dedication, and then application. Feel me? Practice, dedication, application. You know what I'm saying? It's just, but a lot of people, same way you practice your offense and your combos and all that, you have to be diligent like that with defensive practice. It's really no different. Ways to help you train that: treat it like you going to the gym. Do reps, like I told Tetsujin for Korean backdashing. Practice reps on both sides, and don't try to overwhelm yourself with a bunch of reps. Just start off slow and gradually build your way up. That's the same way you do in the gym. You may be trying to lift Tensujin. I said Tetsujin. I'm thinking of the Tekken character. But Tensujin, thanks for posing that question. But yeah, just do reps. You know, start off with 1, then graduate to 2, then graduate to 3, then do both sides. 15 minutes a day. Both sides. That's 30 minutes of movement practice right there. You just dedicated 30 minutes to movement just doing that. You feel me? It's that simple. But I'm going to go ahead and get into wrapping it up. Thanks to tuning in, everybody. This was definitely a dope, informative episode. Be sure to follow and subscribe on here. I will be doing a giveaway this month as well. I'll be announcing that on my Twitter, so be sure to follow me on Twitter at LTrain_313. And also follow my Facebook gaming page. That is AXL L Train. Panther, this will be on YouTube today. Matter of fact, probably momentarily after I wrap up. So it will not be long. Trust me. Like I said, coronavirus, I got time. And I'm off work too, so I definitely got time. So what I was saying, oh yeah. So follow the Facebook gaming page as well. That's AXL L Train. And if you want to follow me on the Instagram, it's L Train the Locomotive, but THA instead of E, and that's all together. You can follow me on there as well if you just want to follow me, you know, on Instagram. You know, I normally don't, but I post stream clips and stuff on there, so it's useful. So with that being said, this has been another episode of Train of Thought. I am glad that, you know, y'all were able to tune in on this lovely Good Friday. And I will probably be back with a regular Tekken TV stream, which is, of course, just me just playing and laughing and having fun with y'all in that sense. But may do that later. It depends, because I might be getting some QT time with the lady a bit. So not 100% sure on what time I'm gonna do that. It may be a late night stream, I don't know, but I will announce it on my Twitter. So like I said, be sure to follow me on Twitter. And yeah, this has been another episode of Train of Thought. It's your boy L Train, and I will holler at y'all.